Let's welcome in the governor. Governor DeWine, thank you for being with us this morning. I appreciate your time. I would imagine you have now had some time to review the video that we have been sharing with our audience throughout the last few hours here. We all had a reaction as we watched this. I certainly did. What was yours?
Well, maybe to kind of put this in perspective, I've done, since I became governor 4 years ago, probably over 500 press conferences. I had a lot, as you know, during the pandemic, and continue to do those. And, you know, I've been in East Palestine now twice to try to keep people informed about what was going on. What I said last night after I was informed, my press secretary came over and told me what had happened, because I couldn't see what happened. We had a bank of TV cameras there. And, you know, we were conducting the press conference and trying to inform people in the community and in the area exactly what we knew. So I couldn't see anything. But then Jill told me, my press secretary said that, you know, a reporter had been arrested. And of course I was shocked by that. What I said last night, I got a question at the press conference. Press conference continued on, is what I meant. And that is, look, reporters have every right to report. They have every right to do it live or on tape. I didn't know which he was doing. And they can do it during the press conference. And that has happened, you know, and it's not done every time, but I've had press conferences where, you know, someone is reporting live. So, you know, if I had seen it, I certainly would have told the people that went over to try to quiet him or to try to tell him not to do it. I don't know exactly what they told him. I would have told them to stop because he has every right to be broadcasting, every right to be reporting. I never saw any of it. You know, the first thing I ever saw was the video, which does not show what happens initially. So, again, I don't know any more than you know, what I see on TV. But I just want to reiterate, you know, the reporter had every right to broadcast. No one should have said anything to the reporter about whether he was loud or not loud. They shouldn't have said anything to him about being able to broadcast or not. I don't know what was actually said, but certainly something was said when this thing got started.
And Governor, as you see the video now and you've had a chance to watch it, and you can see, you can't hear some of the interaction that you're talking about, but you see a member of law enforcement pull Evan through the door, and then moments later, cameras are rolling, he's taken to the ground. What's your reaction to that level of force, given the fact he's there to report he was doing a live shot, as you watch it, as not just as a governor, but as a person?
Well, no, I mean, you know, no one ever wants to see that. And certainly no one ever wants to see that happen in regard to a report. What I don't know, I'm an old prosecutor, and so I got to tell you what I know and what I don't know. And what I don't know is what happened before. I don't know what the exchange between the reporter and law enforcement was. You know, I think you have to go to the local police and to get them to tell you, you know, what they believe happened or what they think happened. I can't comment on that. But no one ever wants to see this. No one ever wants to see a reporter who is doing their job handcuffed and arrested. So, yeah, I mean, I don't like it at all. And
what role, you know, Governor, did you play in Evan's release last night? We initially heard he'd spend the night in jail. He didn't. He stayed there several hours, though. What was your role?
Well, I don't know if I had a role other than to express to the officials that I thought, you know, he should be released. And, you know, express this to several of my friends in the community. And I think they had conversations, you know, ultimately with the judge in regard to that. At least that's my understanding. But I was pretty clear even before I left the gym that night that no one wanted to see him in jail. And I hope that they would be able to do something so that did not happen.
As a prosecutor, as you mentioned, the charges are for disorderly conduct and criminal trespassing. Should they be dropped?
Well, look, I mean, I think we would like to see this whole thing go away. What I don't know is, again, all the facts. And, it's not fair for me. It's not fair for me, to the police, or to the reporter involved, or to anyone else who was involved, to, comment on that, because I don't know the facts. We know what we see on TV. We know what what you're reporting. But that is part of it. We don't know the whole thing. So
let me ask you this.
Look, I don't want to see him in jail. I don't want to see him in jail. I don't want to see him prosecuted. But for me to say I know what happened would simply not be the truth.
So what questions are you asking members of law enforcement as the leader of that state about what did happen? What questions do you have for them?
What happened? I had some discussion before I left the gym about what happened, but certainly did not talk to everyone. My understanding, and Harris has released a statement, which I think that you have or you will be getting. He had the initial contact with the reporter, but then you have law enforcement, I believe in the sheriff's office, as well as from East Palestine, involved in the actual arrest. And what I don't know is what they will say as far as what transpired or what the sequence of events was.
Let me ask you this, because you were very clear yesterday, and I hear you. You're very clear now that this is unacceptable. You allow reporters to be doing live shots and doing their job before, during, and after an event, even if you are speaking at the time. Were there parameters given to local law enforcement? Because when you're at an event, there's extra security and there needs to be. What were the directives given to law enforcement about reporters and what they could and could not be doing?
No, I gave none. I always proceed under the assumption that, we're going to have a press conference and reporters do what they do. I'm someone that generally stays and answers all the questions. We did that last night. What I was trying to do to accomplish yesterday is we had not just me talking, but more importantly, we had the Ohio EPA, US EPA, we had experts on water, we had experts on air, we had a representative of the railroad, and went back and forth with him in regard to when the cleanup would actually take place. So these are all things we wanted to share with the public, and that's kind of how I operate. Is the more the public knows, the better. They're the ones who have to live in the aftermath. They have the right to know that their air is good. They also have the right to know what the railroad is willing to do. All of those things we were covering in this press conference, and that was what my focus was. What was unique about this is, this was a press conference that was not occurring, back in the governor's office, or it was not occurring in any of the state buildings. It was, out in the field in a elementary school, and that was the only thing that was different. But we had a full press conference 2 days before, in the identical place, and we had, everything was fine. So again, if I'd seen someone approach the reporter, I would have stopped him, or I would tell them to leave him alone. This is just not what we do. We're used to having reporters who are we have great reporters in Ohio. Nationally, they do a good job. They're aggressive. They're supposed to be aggressive. I don't complain about tough questions. This is kind of what we do. As I've said to reporters many times, you have your job. I have my job. Your job is to ask the questions. My job is to, try to supply the answers if I know the answers. So,
and Evan was doing his job. Evan is he is a calm, demeanored reporter, aggressive when necessary. But it doesn't matter what type of reporter you are. No. When you are arrested and taken to the ground, it is traumatizing. So Governor, my question to you is, what message would you have for Evan, having gone through this experience last night?
Well, look, I'm sorry he went through it. I don't know what went back and forth between Evan and law enforcement, but What I know was wrong is that someone said to him that he should stop reporting or that he should tone it down or whatever was said to him. I fully realize that reporters, particularly when they're doing something live, they're very focused on it. They want to get that story out to the viewers. Doing live, adds a good element, I think, for the viewer. They're seeing it in real time. And I'm sorry that I'm very sorry that he was stopped from doing his job.
Governor, I appreciate you saying that. I think that means a lot to us as his colleagues. I know it means a lot to Evan. He was doing his job. He was trying to get the message out to your community about an evacuation. So let's end it with that. He was trying to update people on the evacuation being lifted. What is the status of the train derailment situation and the concern over chemicals in the air? Share with Evan's audience, our audience, and anyone else watching.
Well, it's good. I mean, the good news for the day is that the air quality is good. EPA is going to continue to monitor it. We have some concern about water. We're going to continue to monitor that. There's no fear at this point about the water that people are actually drinking. Most of the people in that area are drinking it from a system, not in their own wells. But we're going to continue to monitor that. The other information was, you're not only are you free to go back, but we will come in and test your air in your house if you want that done. And we'll continue to, have the monitoring that will occur. If there's any change, we'll immediately tell the public about that. But basically, people, after a very harrowing few days and scary few days, they can go back and live their lives. And that was the good news for the day.
That is the good news. The regrettable news is what brought us together this morning. But Governor, I thank you very much for giving us some of your time. It means a lot. Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.